Picture this moment carefully. Your closest day one, the person who stood beside you before the fame, before the money, before the industry politics, is suddenly gone. Not quietly. Not peacefully. Taken out on an open interstate, in broad daylight, in a way that sends a message louder than words ever could. Then the whispers start spreading like wildfire. Fingers begin pointing. And suddenly, a name you once trusted, a name tied to success and respect in the same industry, starts coming up in conversations you never wanted to hear. That is the nightmare many believe Lil Baby was forced to wake up to after the murder of Marlo. And ever since that moment, the streets have not gone silent. They have been screaming. According to street talk and online speculation, this was not just another tragic loss. This was betrayal at the highest level. Allegations began circulating that 21 Savage, someone once considered an ally, may have played a role in setting up the hit. Social media exploded overnight. Fans, bloggers, and street commentators started connecting dots, replaying old interviews, dissecting lyrics, and pulling up past beefs that suddenly did not feel so random anymore. The question everyone keeps asking is simple but terrifying. Why Marlo? Why did he have to go? And more importantly, who truly benefited from his absence? To understand the weight of the situation, you have to understand the bond between Lil Baby and Marlo. These were not industry friendships built on contracts and convenience. These were brothers forged in survival. Both came up from Bankhead, one of Atlanta's most unforgiving neighborhoods, where loyalty is currency and betrayal is deadly. They grew up sharing the same struggles, the same dangers, and the same hunger to make it out. When they both signed to Quality Control around the same time, people around them knew this was a package deal. Wherever Baby went, Marlo was right there, not chasing fame, but protecting the foundation they built together. And that is what makes this story even darker. Because when someone that close is removed, it is never just business. It is personal. The streets started buzzing about retaliation. Fans feared Atlanta was on the edge of turning into a full-blown war zone. That is when reports claim Young Thug had to step in behind the scenes, attempting to calm tensions before everything spiraled out of control. What the public saw was silence. What insiders claim was happening was pressure, negotiations, and quiet warnings being sent. This story is not just about a murder. It is about loyalty tested, friendships questioned, and a line crossed that may never be uncrossed. And the deeper you dig, the more uncomfortable the truth starts to feel. But this is where the story takes a painful, uncomfortable turn. While Lil Baby's career exploded and his name became global, Marlo's music never reached the same heights. The gap between them kept growing, and according to P from Quality Control, that gap came with consequences. Marlo was not earning the kind of money Baby was earning through music, and because of that, he allegedly stayed active in the streets to maintain the lifestyle he had always lived. This is the part that makes the situation heartbreaking. Baby did not abandon him. He did the opposite. He fought for him. Lil Baby reportedly used every ounce of his power to pull Marlo away from danger. He secured him a deal, locked him into long studio sessions, placed him on records, and constantly pushed him to focus on music instead of street activity. In interviews, you could hear it clearly in Baby's voice. He genuinely believed Marlo had real talent. He wanted his brother to escape the hood the right way, through music, through legal success, through survival. But sometimes belief is not enough when the streets still have their grip on you. Despite the deal, despite the opportunities, Marlo allegedly never fully let go of the streets. Even with Baby backing him, he continued moving weight and handling business in Bankhead. That loyalty to the streets, even when a clear exit was right in front of him, is what many believe ultimately led to his downfall. And this is where the situation reportedly began pulling 21 Savage into the picture, turning personal choices into a citywide powder keg. Here is what most casual fans never really understood about Marlo. He was not a rapper pretending to be tough for image or clout. Long before music, Marlo was already respected in Bankhead. His reputation was established in the streets, not on the internet. He was allegedly connected to PFK, Play for Keeps, also known as 3L, a group with reported ties to the Goodfellas mob. And according to Street Talk, he was not just dealing weight. He was allegedly involved in handling serious business for his crew, the kind of work that does not get discussed openly but carries permanent consequences. One of the most significant moments that reportedly put Marlo directly on 21 Savage's radar was the alleged killing of Capo Nuke. And this is not a small name we are talking about. Nuke was described as a high-ranking member of the Goodfellas mob, someone who had recently been released after serving major time. He was respected, feared, and deeply connected. More importantly, he reportedly had strong ties to the 4L crew that 21 Savage is affiliated with. According to the narrative circulating in the streets, Nuke was allegedly involved with Marlo's child's mother, and Marlo did not tolerate that level of disrespect. The story goes that Marlowe allegedly made the call and had Nuke taken out. If true, that decision sealed his fate. Because when someone with Nuke's level of influence and connections is removed, the streets do not forget, and they definitely do not forgive. His death reportedly sent shockwaves through circles connected to 21 Savage, turning Marlowe from a respected figure into a marked one. At that point, it was no longer about music or pride. It was about retaliation. To understand how the hit on Marlowe allegedly unfolded, you have to understand the role of Baby Drill. His real name is Del Cristo Wilson, and he was a young figure hungry for recognition in both the streets and the rap world. Baby Drill was reportedly a member of 21 Savage's 4L crew, known for putting in serious work and showing loyalty. He came up inside the structure that 21 Savage built, surrounded by older members whose respect had to be earned, not given. And in that world, respect often comes at a terrible price. According to allegations, when 21 Savage supposedly placed a bounty on Marlowe, Baby Drill did not see it as just another street move. He allegedly saw opportunity. A moment where violence could be transformed into status, reputation, and a fast track up Atlanta's ruthless hierarchy. In a city where credibility is currency and fear is power, attaching yourself to a high-profile hit could instantly elevate your name. If true, Baby Drill understood something chilling. Taking out someone as respected and connected as Marlowe would force the streets to acknowledge him. What makes this story deeply unsettling is not just the violence, but what allegedly followed. The way the act was turned into branding, lyrics, and mythology. Marlowe was not just another rapper. He moved with quiet authority, without loud internet antics or constant self-promotion. In Atlanta, that kind of presence means everything. That is why his death sent shockwaves through the city. When the news broke, people did not just mourn. They started asking dangerous questions. Who would dare touch Marlowe? Who benefited? And who was bold, or reckless, enough to hint at involvement? Almost immediately, Baby Drill's name began circulating. Not through official statements, not through police reports, but through lyrics, whispers, and patterns that people from that life recognize instantly. And as those whispers grew louder, the situation stopped being just a tragedy. It became a warning. A reminder of how fast loyalty, ambition, and betrayal can collide, leaving nothing behind but bodies, rumors, and a city holding its breath. After Marlowe's death, the tone shifted in a way that made people deeply uncomfortable. Baby Drill allegedly began releasing music that many felt crossed an unspoken rule of the streets. There is a clear difference between rapping about violence in a general, abstract way and referencing a real death that just happened and that everyone in the city is still processing. Songs like 32 Freestyle and collaborations with Young Nudy did not sound accidental to street listeners. The lyrics felt pointed. When he rapped about taking out the biggest op at 17, people did not hear metaphor or exaggeration. They heard celebration. They heard someone taking a victory lap, announcing to Atlanta that something irreversible had been done and that he wanted recognition for it. To outsiders, it might have sounded like standard drill rap bravado. But in Atlanta, especially among those who understood Marlowe's status, it landed differently. It felt specific. It felt intentional. It felt like a message. Social media began buzzing, not with official confirmations, but with reactions, side-eyes, and coded comments. Street pages reposted the lyrics. Fans argued in comment sections. People started saying the quiet part out loud. This did not feel like coincidence. It felt like someone telling a story without ever saying a name. As official narratives stayed silent, street talk rushed in to fill the vacuum. According to what circulated widely, on July 11, 2020, Marlowe was leaving the Bankhead reunion, an event rooted in community, history, and local pride. The irony of that detail still stings. He was not leaving a nightclub in the early hours of the morning. He was not moving recklessly through unfamiliar territory. He was home. He was around his people. That sense of safety is what makes what allegedly happened next feel even more brutal. The story goes that Baby Drill and members of his crew allegedly followed Marlowe onto Interstate 285. A high-speed pursuit on a major highway turns the situation from tragic to chaotic. Allegedly, shots were fired into Marlowe's vehicle, causing him to lose control. The car crashed. Marlowe died at the scene. In seconds, a life was erased. A future disappeared. A brother was gone. What remained was twisted metal, police tape, and a city full of questions that nobody in power seemed ready to answer. What disturbed people even more was what came after. There was no silence. No disappearing act. Instead, Baby Drill allegedly leaned into the moment. His music became louder, more aggressive, more confident. To many observers, it felt like he was daring law enforcement, rivals, and even fate itself to respond. In street logic, surviving something that serious without immediate consequences can create a dangerous illusion. People start believing they are untouchable. They confuse luck with destiny. And in drill culture, that mindset almost always ends in destruction. The perception that this was not an isolated incident only amplified his notoriety. When Baby Drill was later arrested on murder charges in an unrelated case, it reinforced what many already believed. In the court of public opinion, the Marlowe situation stopped being viewed as a one-time event and started looking like part of a larger pattern. Whether every allegation is true or not almost became irrelevant. Narratives move faster than facts, and Baby Drill's narrative was solidifying into something dark. Someone who did not just rap about violence, but allegedly embodied it. In a genre where authenticity is everything, that kind of reputation can build a career just as fast as it can destroy a life. To understand why 21 Savage was allegedly involved at all, you have to zoom out and look at Atlanta's gang politics. These are not simple rivalries fueled by ego alone. They are layered conflicts shaped by history, territory, alliances, and betrayals that stretch back years. 21 Savage is affiliated with 4L, a collective connected to Slaughter Gang and linked to various blood sets across the city. These affiliations are not symbolic. They dictate who you move with, where you can safely exist, and who is considered an enemy by default. In that environment, personal beef rarely stays personal. It spreads. It multiplies. It becomes organizational. By many accounts, Marlowe was not careless. He did not move without awareness or protection. That is what made his death so shocking. It suggested either a catastrophic breakdown in security or an attack so calculated and bold that even someone as cautious as Marlowe could not avoid it. Allegedly, tensions between camps had been building quietly, unresolved disrespect simmering beneath the surface. When money, pride, and influence collide like that, escalation becomes almost inevitable. If a bounty truly existed, as street rumors insist, then this was never just about revenge. It was about sending a message. About reasserting dominance. About reshaping the balance of power in a city where reputation can mean survival. And what makes the entire situation haunting is how seamlessly tragedy, music, and marketing blurred together afterward. In the aftermath of Marlowe's death, fans turned into investigators. Lyrics were dissected line by line. Instagram posts were analyzed like evidence. Every bar Baby Drill released felt like a clue. In the digital age, violence does not fade quietly. It is documented, replayed, theorized about endlessly. And for artists caught in that spotlight, the attention can feel intoxicating. The same spotlight that sells records can also build a case. And once that line is crossed, there is no rewriting the ending. There is a darker, more uncomfortable question sitting beneath everything we have talked about, and most people do not want to face it. What does it say about the culture when alleged murder becomes a promotional tool? When a teenager can allegedly gain status, visibility, and momentum by taking a life and then referencing it in music that racks up millions of streams and views? This is not just about one artist or one decision. This is about an entire ecosystem that rewards shock value, fear, and perceived authenticity more than restraint or accountability. Labels profit quietly. Fans argue loudly. Bloggers speculate endlessly. And while all of that happens, families are left burying their dead, and neighborhoods absorb yet another loss that never truly heals. Marlowe's death was not just the end of a rapper's journey. To many people close to the situation, it felt like the silencing of someone who might have eventually stepped away from the very street politics that caught up to him. Meanwhile, Baby Drill's rise, whether driven by truth, exaggeration, or a dangerous mix of both, became a chilling example of how quickly violence can be mythologized. Add in the alleged involvement of a global name like 21 Savage, and suddenly this no longer feels like an isolated tragedy. It feels like one chapter in a much larger, ongoing story about power, loyalty, survival, and control in Atlanta. At the end of the day, the streets do not care about record deals or streaming numbers. They remember actions. They remember who lived, who died, and who claimed what afterward. And while the full truth may only ever be known by those directly involved, the echoes of that night on Interstate 285 still ripple through music, courtrooms, and conversations today. It stands as a chilling reminder of how thin the line really is between art, reality, and irreversible loss. To understand how things reached this point, you have to look back at what the relationships used to look like. Marlowe was connected to PFK, also known as 3L, a crew with long-standing ties to the Goodfellas mob. For a long time, their relationship with 4L was not defined by open hatred or non-stop bloodshed. In fact, there was a period where the lines between these groups felt almost blurred. Old videos still circulate online showing 21 Savage and Marlowe standing side by side in the Ninth Ward, relaxed, smiling, laughing, moving with a sense of unity that now feels unreal compared to how everything unfolded later. Back then, the energy was different. They were getting money together. They were navigating the same streets, sharing the same environment, and moving with mutual respect. Nobody watching those clips would have guessed that these same names would later be linked to one of the most talked about street feuds in Atlanta. At that time, alliances mattered more than grudges. Survival meant sticking together, not tearing each other apart. But the streets do not operate on nostalgia. One decision, one body, and years of familiarity can turn into pure hatred overnight. Everything reportedly shifted when Marlo allegedly had Capo Nuke killed. Nuke was not just another name. He was respected, well-connected, and deeply tied to people around 21 Savage. His presence carried weight, and his death sent shockwaves through the city. In environments like this, certain losses cannot be ignored or quietly handled. Nuke's death was seen as a violation that demanded a response. Ignoring it would have been interpreted as weakness, and weakness does not survive long in the streets. After Nuke's murder, tensions escalated rapidly. Members of 4L reportedly began applying heavy pressure on PFK and anyone even loosely associated with 3L. The streets turned hostile fast. Chain snatchings became more frequent. Robberies increased. Shootings followed soon after. Younger members of 4L, eager to prove themselves and fueled by anger, were allegedly moving recklessly, targeting anyone they believed had ties to PFK. The violence stopped being strategic and became emotional. Every encounter carried the possibility of death. Every day felt like a countdown to the next rumor, the next funeral, the next name added to the list. One of the most tragic losses during this period was Madrock, an 18-year-old 4L member who was already gaining a reputation in the streets for being active and loyal. Despite his age, he was seen as someone willing to slide when needed. His death hit especially hard because it highlighted how young and expendable people were becoming in this conflict. Madrock was killed in a drive-by shooting, and almost immediately, fingers pointed toward PFK as retaliation for the pressure 4L had been applying since Nuke's death. Whether that belief was accurate or not almost stopped mattering. The perception alone was enough to justify the next wave of violence. That is how these cycles survive. One loss leads to another until nobody remembers who fired the first shot, only who they lost. As the bodies piled up and the streets stayed tense, the conflict allegedly began shifting toward major figures. This is where the situation is said to have taken an even darker turn. According to street narratives, this was the moment when 21 Savage showed how cold and calculated the situation had become. Not only is he accused of being involved in orchestrating Marlo's death, but he is also accused of turning that moment into a public message through music. When Lil Baby released his album, many listeners were stunned to hear lines from 21 Savage that felt unmistakably aimed at Marlo. The bars were not subtle. They carried the tone of a diss, a flex, and a warning all at once. To many people, it felt like trolling at the highest level. What made it even more unsettling was the timing and the platform. These lines were not buried in a random verse. They appeared on Lil Baby's own album, during a period when Baby was publicly mourning the loss of his best friend. To observers, it felt like a message layered inside another message. Almost like a test. Would Lil Baby respond? Would he stand on loyalty for his fallen brother, or would industry